like to welcome everybody to this episode of the Stone Disclosure. Um, this one was a little improv too. It was, a lot of things I was researching for a while, but an incident happened and it really just kind of like took me for a loop. For anybody who's been living under a rock or hasn't gone on Instagram yet, Stephen Twitch Boss, known as Twitch, the DJ for Ellen, also a former castmate of So You Think You Can Dance, died December 13th, 2002 due to suicide. Now, this is a man who, like, his whole thing was just making people happy and making people smile. From his days on the show to like his days on Ellen, he's a family man, has kids, married, and he wound up hanging himself. So we I kind of look at this and I date it back to even like some other people who we've lost, and I date back to about the last 10 years. And I really think it's something that needed to be discussed. With me today, I have two members of the Man Cave, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Every one of you guys want Beard wins.
All right, so yeah, Will, I've known Trey since high school, grade 9. Licensed mechanic, auto mechanic. Been licensed for a year, but been in the trade for like 7. So, actually, I'm gonna call it 8 years. So yeah, that's what I do, and currently single. Yeah.
Tim Kroll, father of 1, married. Known Trayvon for a while now through work. I also tack leather goods on Instagram. Check it out. About it.
So we have a very balanced cast. You know, one guy is single, no kids. The other one's married with kids. The other one is in a relationship, no longer married with kids. So we cover a broad spectrum. Right? And I want to thank you guys for just, being part of this, because I legitimately talked to you guys 2 hours ago and said like, hey, I'm doing this. So like, let's jump on it real quick. So as much as Twitch really hit close to home for me, like I grew up in the dance world. I've met him in person. He's actually legitimately pure energy and just pure positivity all the time. That really did throw me for a loop, seeing a person like that decide that it was time to go and take his own life, leaving behind his children and leaving behind his wife. But if we date back, there's a lot of people in the last little bit that we've been losing. Everyone remembers Jason David Frank, the Green and White Ranger from Power Rangers. A Power Ranger took his life. These mans were beaten up like monsters, and he took his own life. Like martial artists, disciplined, everything. He hung himself, and it was over his relationship. Like him and his wife had a fight. They've been kind of going through stuff for a long time, and things just came to blows. Aaron Carter, I know a lot of people say it's an overdose, but new reports have come out saying that like that amount of drugs, anybody would know would kill you. So he kind of knew what he was doing in that sense. Anthony Bourdain, who we lost 2018, traveled the world, did what he loved.
Living the life.
Did what he loved.
Bro. That was like my favorite. That was the only reason to watch CNN, to be honest.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
This one I actually didn't know Avicii actually ended his life too. Didn't know that. 2018. He cut it and just bled out. Chester Bennington, lead singer for Linkin Park. That was what, 2017? Don Cornelius. Does anybody know who that is?
No, that Don Cornelius? Like the Soul Train?
Invented Soul Train.
No way. Wow. I didn't know that's how he passed. I thought he just passed because old age or whatever, disease or something.
No,
wow.
He ended his life with a firearm back in 2012. Yeah.
Wow.
The man made Soul Train. Like, that's crazy. Silvio Horta. He is the creator for the show Ugly Betty. Died in 2022. Benjamin Keough. This is the grandson of Elvis Presley. Him was shocking to me because he was only 27 years old. He died 2022. Gunshot wound to the head, self-inflicted. Lee Thompson Young, the famous Jet Jackson for all the millennials back in well, Family Channel days. It's 2013. And I think the most famous one, Robin Williams. Believe it or not, this was 2014.
Forgot about him.
Died at 63.
Yeah.
It's crazy that these people, some of them, had a little bit of a troubled history, but the one thing that they said all of these people had in common was depression, high degrees of depression, diagnosed for years. A lot of them were utilizing and abusing alcohol and other substances. And a lot of them were very giving people. Like they were very willing to like help anybody. And for them to get to that point, it says a lot. Now, we're going to go through a quick list of just boring statistics, but a lot of this actually surprised me. So in the US, diagnosed mental health issues is legitimately the biggest, like, actual precursor for people who commit suicide. Number two would be recent and upcoming crisis. So things you know is going to happen, like you're going to go to jail, you're going to have a divorce, or it's currently happening to you now. Relationship issues, surprisingly, is number three, which surprised me. I didn't really think it was that high on the list. It's actually above physical health issues, which comes in at number four.
I believe that.
The relationship one, I believe that. Because it's not just the relationship, it's everything else that's tied to it.
Yeah.
So it's like, divorce is coming up or it's leading down that path. You're thinking money. You're thinking your kids. Yeah. You're thinking, where am I going to live? Because she's most likely going to get the place. So it's never just breakup. If it was just a breakup, peace.
You'd be fine.
Most dudes would be like, all right, cool. I'll figure it out. But if you're going to lose everything and the wife, then it's like, fuck. That's a lot.
It's such a huge, like, life. And, like, being a person who, like, I just officially became divorced on the 11th. So just the whole idea of, like, this is where you were, say, like 2, 3, 4 years ago, and then this is where you're at now. And even, like, everything that has to change and all the things that have to happen outside of that, it is a lot. It is a very, very stressful situation. And I would say mine was very easy compared to some of the stories I've heard from other people. Number 5 is alcohol and substance abuse, which, again, I think is very common with a lot of the people who kind of go down that path. A lot of the times they say, like, that's the start of it. You start looking for that little bit of escape, and that gives you that little escape for a while, but then it stops working and you no longer know how to cope, right? So you continue on this downward spiral that doesn't really end well for most people. So as of 2011, globally, suicide occurs 1.8 times more in men. And this is why I wanted to cater this episode to men. Not to say that women aren't going through the same things, but it's very prevalent in men. It's almost double. In the Western world, men die 4 times more than women, and men over 65 die 10 times more than women. So as you get in those wonder years, you retire, and it's just
you better have something to do.
You better be efficient.
We got to point out you can retire.
That's if you can retire. They also say risk of suicide is higher in people who are lower income than people in higher income, especially in those bases as well. People in lower income actually plan their suicide more than people at the higher income. So I don't know if that's just based on like availability of things, but that's something that really like surprised me. The highest rate is actually men in the middle income range. And this is usually men who are, working decent jobs, maybe like $50,000, $60,000 a year. They're usually in families or in that family range, in that family bracket. Those are the people who are usually homeowners, and you know what I mean? Like you're in that range where you're not broke, but you're not rich.
Lose.
Yeah, you have.
Everything to lose. And you're like right in the middle. So it's like, I'm not broke. I got
Yeah,
my house, I got the car, everything is good. But one little thing screw this all up. And I don't have the money to support myself or even fight this or blah blah.
yeah,
So yeah, I can see how the middle classes got it the worst. Lower class, I think a lot of times you stick through it. You're just like, yo, I can't
is
do it on my own.
yeah
We
is
both know we can't do it on our own. So it's like you put up with a lot of bullshit just so you don't deal with another problem.
mm. No, it's very true. One thing that stood out for me, it's actually kind of interesting, is attempts of suicide and self-harm incidents are 2 to 4 times more frequent in women. So they're
Yes.
doing a lot more than we are, but we're shooting a lot better than they are. To put
I got
Like for are we
basketball,
crazy.
picking
I got
guarantee things to kill you?
yeah,
Us? Is that what it is?
men are the almost like the Steph Curry of suicide now. We're a lot more deliberate. And in my studies that I was looking up, they said I think 53% of male suicides are due to firearms. So we're putting that gun to our head and we're pulling that trigger. It's finite, it's deliberate. We've decided it's going to get done. The highest percentage of death for women in suicide is poisoning, which you may survive, may not survive. The names that I read out earlier are all based on firearm discharge, hanging, jumping from a very high height, and extreme drug overdose. So they're very deliberate when they get to that point, which I think is very, very telling. And I'll get into that a little bit later. Second most cause of death in adolescence in young males is suicide. Second only to accidental death. 30% of mortality events in young males, 30% of it is caused by suicide. The leading cause of death in the US is also suicide. 45,979 deaths in 2020 were due to suicide. That's about one death every 11 minutes. The number of people who contemplate or attempt suicide is even higher than that number. It's, they either talk themselves out of it or they don't pull it off. In 2020, 12.2 million people in the US seriously thought about suicide. 3.2 million planned it, and 1.2 actually attempted. These are actually very alarming numbers. I did not think it would be this high.
Damn.
it's
So it's
it's
obviously a problem. It's obviously a problem.
it definitely going through it. I thought, and like I've dealt with like being in that place before. I also have friends who I have lost due to this, and I thought, it's like it happens, but it's not as common. Like more people probably get killed in car accidents, but statistics don't lie. Like suicide is the deadliest thing right now, especially for men. 2023 suicide was among the top 9 causes of death for people ages 10 to 64 and was the second leading cause for people between the ages of 10 to 14 and 25 to 35. 25 to 35.
The mere fact that you said
Hmm.
10-year-old, like they're talking about pre-teens. Like
Talking kids.
your life hasn't even fully.
Yeah.
So it's like, what are they dealing with at 10 years old
Yeah.
to contemplate suicide?
I can't fully remember what I did at 10, but I'm pretty sure it
That
consists
isn't it.
or
I've
playing.
never crossed my mind at that age. It was having fun.
Yeah. Now I
I
think
never.
about it, and for me, my son is 4. So 6 years from now, he may be coming across kids who are going through this.
13-year-old.
There we go.
And I hear stories where there's this one kid at my son's school. He he's different. I don't know necessarily know how he's different, but he doesn't like. There's one time my son gets off the school bus, and this kid runs up to me. He's like, "McKill was talking on the bus. He wasn't listening to the bus driver," and I was just like, this is the most random thing. This kid, you're looking for trouble. Because, I mean, if that was me, if I was my son and I heard you say this to my dad, I'm getting you next day. Because it's like, what was the purpose of this? But like, I've been hearing this stuff going on all the time with this kid, where he puts himself in position. But I tell my son, like, yo, be careful. Do not be the one kid that's doing this stuff also, because I feel like this is the kid that might snap off one day.
Mm-hmm.
Just because kids are mean.
Yeah.
And the stuff my son is telling me, all I could tell him is like, yo, don't be the one. If you got to be extra nice to him, be extra nice. So when his mind goes off that day, you let him remember that you were the nice one, because it scares me. It terrifies me, the stuff that he tells me from this one child. And not to say this child is the bad child, but it's like, this is the child we are talking about right now, where he's going through things and it's like nobody's giving him the help. And I'm just afraid because kids are bullying him, kids are picking on him. And I can see how it's easy, but I can also see how this can go very, very bad.
That's a scary position to be in. Parent, and as your son, that's a scary position to be in.
News, and it's like, yeah, we in Canada, it's not as relevant, but it's coming. Like, there's a lot of stuff that isn't normal in Canada that's now like trickling over, and it's just like, damn, is this the same city that we've always been living in? It's a lot of stuff that I just wasn't used to. Now it's like, oh fuck, this is actually a problem right now.
So why do you guys think this? Why do you think that it's legitimately the second leading cause for pre-adolescent and pre-teen like people now? Like, for me, I think just the idea of like the internet coming out was like huge. Because for us, when we were growing up, we didn't get the internet till what, 9th grade, 8th grade, somewhere around there. I think it was what.
Wasn't anything to really talk about.
So during that time, we were outside, we were engaging with other kids, like we were actually like doing things and bonding. We created a lot of bonds during that time. Where I feel like now, I just look at like kids I know who are around me, and they're just constantly on a phone, on a tablet, and they're engaging with other people, but you're not physically engaging with people. You're having conversations over the phone. And I was watching something on the TV the other day, and they were talking about how some of the social media companies are getting sued in the States because they're saying that it caused psychological damage to the kids. And there was a story about a young girl, I think she was like 14 or 15 years old, and she was like extremely bullied online. And it got to the point where she started looking up like how to kill herself. And they were saying that she shouldn't have been able to have access to videos like that will teach you how to harm yourself. And they got lucky because the parents came home just at the right time, and you know what I mean, we're able to.
That gives me chills, man.
I think just access to things. I'm not going to say it's like we have to blame the internet or anything like that, but I do think it's a factor that now you're bullied at school, because I've been bullied at school, but when I went home, I was fine. But now you're being bullied at home. You're being bullied because you're on your phone, you're on Instagram, and people are leaving comments and all types of shit. And then you're taking in all this like media that really isn't filtered for your young mind, because you're in a fragile place. And it's just you get no break from that.
Like you said before, we were outside.
Yeah.
A lot of the news, it happened, it'd be like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I was busy, I was playing. You come back inside, someone might tell you about it, but really and truly, it wasn't on your radar. Now you just pick up your phone and it's just like, what the hell's going on? And you like flip the next page, another story. This person, a celebrity, you're like everybody. Not even to say it's halfway across the world. It could be like next door. Or the celebrity that you were so a big fan of died. Died from what? Oh, he's using drugs and doing this and doing that. It's like, as a child, you're like, wow. I remember I had people that I looked up to or were fans of when I was a kid. I didn't know they died until I was older.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have access to the things telling me that he was dead. But it's like now it's like you turn on your phone, you're getting everything.
Yeah, right off the.
Everything. And it's not even to say like we both have sons and they're young, they're not at that point, but like there's still more to come.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's still the adult stuff that they're gonna click on. This now is just whatever it's been given to them, but
Yeah,
eventually they're gonna be searching. So I
yeah,
mean, like their brains are just gonna be like, "Oh, what the fuck do I do with this?" And I feel like it is a big problem. And you've heard about how TikTok in like Japan is a whole different ballgame compared to
yeah,
TikTok in the US.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm like, that's crazy. I can see why they would do it, but it's just like, okay, we know this now.
Mm-hmm.
What you gonna do? Nothing. It's all about that. We can make money off all these people.
It's unfortunate. That's what it comes down to in the West, man. It's all about money, all about the almighty dollar, man.
Mm-hmm.
I remember hearing a story. You were speaking about TikTok in Asia. It said in China, when kids are on TikTok, because their TikTok, as yeah, you guys all probably already know, it's completely different than the TikTok we get here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like they actually have educational videos they can watch
Yeah.
like a amount of time in the day, and it's like they ask, okay, I guess they say, okay, what's the number one thing that kids in China want to be? They all say astronauts. That's like the most common answer. Can anyone guess what the number one thing kids here want to be after watching our TikTok?
Oh God.
Influencer. Influencer.
Social media. Yeah, you got it. Social media influencer.
Yeah.
They all want to be
Yep.
influencers. Yeah.
And that's such a weird position because it's like it's fake.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It's like it's not something you can really say, hey, I'm gonna work towards being that. Like a lot of them is just like, okay, and this is not making judgment on anybody, but it'd be like, okay, kind of overweight girl starts selling how to lose weight. I swear to God, she is not really comfortable with herself yet, but it's like, hey, I can market this.
Yeah.
You can look at me every day and I'll be like, hey, I'm proud, big and beautiful and all that stuff, which is great. But it's like, you found a problem and it's like, all right, how can I make money off of this thing that is an issue for me? All right, let me try to sell these things. Let me show them that I'm happy. But I feel like it's so fake, and people watching that, if you're not knowing that it's fake, you're like, okay, I want to be this, but you don't know what this person's did to get there, what this person's real life is like, and you're like, then they're working and they're dreaming, and then it's like reality hits, and it's just like, oh, so maybe I did need to go to school and pay attention and blah blah blah, and this is setback already, and it's messed up, and we know it, but we gotta. Like I try to pull my son away from the stuff. Like his internet shuts off at a certain time of night, like automatically. It has to, because I know he will be there all night long on his phone, looking at God knows what.
Yeah. One thing that I took in this like years. We're talking like 9-10 years ago, where Childish Gambino was doing an interview, and he said that the internet provided this way of like people feeling like they matter. When you
Everybody's a celebrity.
You know what I mean? When you look at like somebody who's like 12, 14 years old, you're in that stage where you're trying to figure out who you are. And as much as like you may want to be like your own person and your own Rolling Stone or whatnot, you still want to matter to people. So now you're going on there, and unfortunately, it's a lot better for me now. But when I started doing a lot of the social media stuff, especially TikTok, everything was just coming to the For You page. Everything. It didn't matter what it was. Now it's a lot more catered because I've been on it so long, the algorithm finally kicked in. But at the beginning, I'm seeing like 12-year-olds doing dances and people harming themselves for
Can't stand that shit.
like, oh look, and like they set up like weird stuff. Like I saw one where a guy was like walking through his house and he's like, oh, there's a ghost in my house, and he like flung himself to the ground. Like you can tell he legitimately threw himself to the ground, and he's
I don't understand it.
this ghost attack. I'm just like,
I don't get it.
all the things you be doing. Like this is what we're doing, right? And his whole page was just full of this. and you just started to see the decline. And the one person that I really started taking, I don't know if you guys have heard about what's his name, Salt Poppy.
What's his
So
name?
he started Salt Poppy. He's this Filipino guy. He started doing videos where he was like simulating running, and he would do little
Oh
dance like
Yeah.
boxing. And like you just saw, like as soon as his like views started to decline, he had to go do something else, and then he had to do something else. Now he had to do something else, and now he's boxing for a living. So it's like, where does it? You
Sorry,
know,
I mean, I remember the
that
guy you're talking about. I remember I was laughing at that. Like, what the fuck is this? Like, what are you really doing? I'm like, 10 years from now, can you
there you go.
proudly talk about this?
Yeah,
Can
yeah.
you bring this up in conversations amongst your other successful friends and be like, yeah, I was the guy doing the fake running? Are you kidding me? Like, I asked my son this. I'm like, years from now, is this something that you're going to look back and be proud of?
Mhm.
Where you're like, yo, I was that guy.
Yeah.
Are you the guy that was a fool that fell off this and rode the top of the train and didn't know not to stand up and fucking knocked it? Like, there's so many of that where it's like, what? Like, does this new generation think that they're superhuman? That nothing can touch
That's
them?
that's the thing. I think now we've been able to market embarrassment, and I think that is a scary thing because
Horrible.
oh my,
Shame. No
whenever
shame these days.
whenever I did something and I was embarrassed, I want nobody to know. Like if I
Nobody.
fell on the bus, I hope nobody watched. If you fell anywhere, you walked into a pole, you looked around to see if anybody saw you. Whereas like
Mhm.
now these people are setting it up so they can do this publicly. So people would watch their video. And my thing is like, especially with the way the brain works, especially a young person's brain, we only have so much bandwidth for shit. So after a while, if I see you fall like 15 times, I'm not really going to care to see you fall again. Like it just is what it is. So what does that now do for the person's psyche who gained fame off of something like that? It's like any drug, right? Attention is a drug, and you're going to try to do something that's more entertaining or will get more attention. And I remember seeing a lot of these videos in the last like year. And when I was looking stuff up, it was very prevalent. There's a lot of people who are social influencers who wound up legitimately either winding up in rehab or killing themselves. Like they ended their own life
I
because
believe it.
at some point when that you've now attached yourself to that attention, and when that attention isn't there anymore, it's like, well, what do I do? I didn't get a degree. No one cares about my life anymore. No one cares about my videos anymore. And we wind up getting into that statistic. Now,
In their own hype.
yeah,
Like, okay, look at all these followers. Look at all these people watch their videos. Like, I mean, I could swipe past your video and it
yeah,
still count as a watch.
yeah.
Like, I really don't give a shit, but it's just like, or I might be watching to watch you do something stupid. It's like,
Mm.
oh, fuck, you didn't fall and bust your head open. I'm going to move on. Like, honestly, that sounds horrible. But I watch certain videos being like, okay, when's the fucking shit? When is someone going to get hurt?
Yeah.
Oh, doesn't? Whatever. Because, I mean,
Where,
that is what I'm used to seeing.
yeah.
That is entertainment on Instagram.
Where
I don't
where
care.
where it got real for me, I think it was in high school when I saw this, was the BME Pain Olympics. Did you guys ever see that video?
Say that again. BME
The
Pain Olympics.
the BME Pain Olympics.
No.
So somebody came up with a crazy idea that they're gonna have an Olympic
Oh
for
Lord.
mutilating themselves. The winner gets a
Mutilating.
it's legitimately like it's viewer vote. So whichever viewers think like watch your video the most, like you win. The guy who wound up winning actually cut off his scrotum with an axe. A very
Done, done. We're good. We're good.
and it was hours until
Yeah,
this was
I'm
a
good.
thing.
I'm there. Yeah, I'm good
This was
for
a
the
thing. So I don't know about you guys. I would definitely want
You do.
$1 million, but I don't think I'm going that far for a million.
You ain't gotta ask the question. Not happening. With an axe? That's like butchering. No.
Yeah. And that was
I
I
mean,
saw 3 and I was like, I can't watch it anymore.
Oh
My head,
man.
I couldn't do it.
And these are the
That's,
same people who got family who mourn them when they're fucking dead.
Mhm.
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I tell my son, like, yo, please don't embarrass me like this. Because, like, I mean, I pray to God nothing ever happens. But if he
Mm.
dies doing something dumb,
Yeah.
there's this weird imbalance where he's like, oh, fuck, I'm sad that he's gone, but it's just like, come on, why did you? Why? Why? Like when that crate challenge came up, oh my god!
Oh,
I looked. I'm like, buddy, no, no. He's like, you think I'm stupid? I'm like, yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. No offense, but buddy, I have to say it. I have to say it. I see you do other dumb shit, so it's like I have to. Be mad at me later,
mm,
whatever. But I, as a parent, I gotta tell you this, and I mean, look me in the eye, man. You cannot try this. Because
mm,
look, I talked to him like, oh, I was playing basketball, trying to dunk, just a simple jump, blew the whole knee out. Yo, that's a thing that can happen. Before that, I was invincible. Now, buddy, I don't do a lot. But it's like I'm so scared of what these kids see and what they think is.
mhm.
Oh, I can try that.
Yeah.
uh,
It's scary out there. So I saw the website. It's for the Western Michigan University. So they have a suicide prevention program. And upon reading through that, they kind of have like just random facts about suicide that I don't think some people think about. So one thing that I think everybody understands is like suicide is preventable. Like I think everybody can understand that. But it's true. Like most people actually don't want to die. They don't want to end their life. It's just they can't find alternatives to the life issues that they're going through. So you're looking at it as like, I don't know how to solve this. So what's the point? And that's where they get to that kind of like mentality. And most of the people who either make attempts or actually like think about suicide, they usually like give very definite warnings. But I think people are either A, unaware of the warnings, or B, we just really don't know how to respond to it. Like I could remember I had a situation where there was a guy I worked with, and Tim, me and you worked at the same job at this point in time, but at this point you had left. And this guy was married. It was a new relationship. They were really only together for like a year and a half. And this guy was just pounding back energy drinks and all types of stuff. I'm like, ah, you're gonna kill yourself one day doing this. I didn't mean it like in a serious sense.
yeah,
But he looked me dead in the face and he's like, well, if I do, my wife gets a payout. And I took it as a joke at first. And then I found out like 2 years he actually ended his life. He jumped in front of a train. And
wow.
saw the name in the news. I was like, you've got to be, can't be the same person. Can't be. And then I went on his Facebook and it was him. His wife had changed his Facebook page now, and it was like a memoir, and there was like a donations page and everything. But like at the time, like again, I didn't know how to respond to something like that. So like I kind of said it as like, like be careful, man. Like what are you doing? But still trying to be like humorous because it is kind of a heavy topic still. But his response was just, I didn't know how to process it. I didn't know if he was serious. I didn't know if he was joking around. I didn't understand it. And I think that's what happens with a lot of like people. Like you're given this information, but you don't know what to do with it. You don't want to take it seriously and jump the gun and be like, oh, let's, call this center for you or anything. Because again, like I think a lot of people kind of don't take it as seriously as it needs to be taken. So it's easier to just be comical and you miss those cues that the people are giving you. Talking about suicide doesn't actually make you suicidal. People talk about it all the time. It's just varying degrees of it. We've all had a moment where we're like, oh god damn, this is gonna kill me. You know what I mean? Or what would
Yeah,
happen if I wasn't here? Like, you think about it, but that doesn't actually mean that you're in that place yet. It does kind of mean that there could be a precursor for it down the line. And I think a lot of people, they get that kind of misunderstanding because they believe like if you're a suicidal person, you're going to come out and say, I am suicidal. And not the case. Like in all honesty, it just isn't. Suicidal behavior is complex. And, um, not having the right response to it could actually like make it more problematic. And sometimes it's not one thing. It could be a bunch of shit. Like you're going through all these small little problems all at once, and collectively it's a bigger deal. And then a month from now, some of these may change. Not to say they're going to get any better or get any worse, but the weight that you put on it's not going to be the same anymore. So you could be a person who's going through a financial hardship, going through a relationship problem, at risk of losing your job, and all three have the same weight. But a month from now, you're still at risk of losing your job, but your relationship now has more weight. Like that's more serious. So anything that happens there kind of gets more attention for you. And the scary part about it is I think a lot of people don't think of the after effects of it. So surviving family members from anybody who committed suicide, they also suffer trauma immediately. It's actually almost easier for you to lose somebody due to an accident than somebody taking their life. Because if you get hit by a car, well, shit, there's nothing you could have done. You got hit by a car, chance incident. If you had an illness, well, as much as I wish I could have helped you with the illness, you have cancer and it can't be treated. You die from cancer. It's more acceptable. But suicide is that person willingly saying, I don't want to be around here, and none of you were able to help me. So the trauma that carries puts that family member now at high risk for suicide themselves, because you're looking at it as, well, I couldn't help this person. And you may now walk into a situation where like, no one can help me. So maybe John had a good idea. And there's actually a high percentage of family members who end their own life after being witness to somebody ending their life as well. I think they said it's 1 in 7 or 1 in 8, which is astoundingly pretty high.
I wouldn't expect that.
Yeah. Another thing, and this is for us specifically, because we are all of the same background, the rate of Black males for suicide between 25 and 35 is 16 out of every 100,000. And it's the third leading cause for Black males between 15 and 24. Now, these are some US statistics. I don't know how much they actually include Canada, but I looked up some stats for Canada, and it is surprisingly still pretty freaking close. In Canada, and this is the Government of Canada website, back in 2019. So I think they're holding off on posting all the COVID-related stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
11 people per day die from suicide. That's about 4,000, give or take, a year. 100 or 1 in 3 deaths occur between people between the age of 15 and 35, and it's 3 times higher in men than it is in women. Sounds very similar to the US for me. So for a lot of people who are like, oh, it doesn't happen here and it doesn't happen to Black people, like, yeah, it does. Everybody kind of goes.
Part of the problem. That
Yeah.
competition thing saying, oh, no, it's worse over there. It's worse. No. It's a problem. Period.
Problem.
Period.
Like if that person has a problem and you could think it's a big problem, well, it's the same thing over here. If it's only half of them, it's still a problem. You got to pay attention to it. And I feel like that competition thing holds a lot of us back.
Yeah.
Like I was saying in the messages earlier, it was like, if you have your wife or your girlfriend or whoever, you're like, oh shit, I'm dealing with this. And like, yeah, but we deal with this every day. It's like, we're not competing.
Mm-hmm.
We're not. If you got a problem and you want to talk about it after, great. But it's like right now, this is just a topic that's up right now.
Mm-hmm.
But people compete too much about their issues. Like it's not cool. Just because you got a bigger problem, do you feel better about it? Mm-hmm. Nothing you really want to pat yourself on the back for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like I said, whataboutism, man. Like, you know, like, well, what about me? Or what about Black people? It's like, okay, well, everyone's going through something. Like you said, it's not a competition, right? Like, you know, why are you trying to make your problems better than this man's problem? Like, it's we all want to. At the end of the day, we all want to get through whatever we're going through. You know. So it's, I don't know. I hate that whole thing. Whataboutism, man.
Mm-hmm. No, I completely agree. I feel like, especially in today's climate, you're almost praised to be a victim for something, and it's as much as
if you're too strong, it's like, oh, you're something wrong with you.
there is power and there is notoriety and there is attention in being a victim. And if we look at just so many instances throughout history, like this has been proven true. It's the same thing with the kid who throws himself on the floor. You're a victim to a circumstance and you get attention from it. It's the same thing from like as bad as the Me Too movement was, like that garnered a lot of attention and there was a lot of victimization in it, don't get me wrong, but a lot of stories came out too that like some of these women nothing ever happened to, but they jumped on the train because other people were profiting from it. So I think we've just kind of now moved to this weird place in society where it's better for us to be quote unquote like, I don't want to use the word victim again, but like be in a situation where we can say we have no control of whatever's going on in our lives. And one thing that I personally dislike, especially about that mentality, is that most of us can do things about the stuff that we go through. We just don't. I feel like men go through it differently than women. I think women have figured it out. Don't get me wrong. They have figured it out. They have had time to figure it out. If we look at just like how society has gone from the dawn of time to now, we're dating back to our grandparents, our great grandparents, some of us even our parents. The man was out working. He was out earning that income. And as morbid and twisted as it sounds, that was his role. He had to go out and work. If he had to go to war, he went to war. If he had to go into mine, he had to go into mine. That was his struggle. That was his cross to bear in the relationship. His role was to take care of his family. So it didn't matter what he went through because he had to get up on Monday and go. He had to get up on Tuesday and go. Get up on Wednesday and go. And the balance worked really well because like the woman stayed home. She took care of the house. She did all the things he didn't have the time to do. She raised the kids. And by raising the kids, like, you know, as a parent, you raise a child, it changes you. The second that baby comes out, you are a different person. Your responsibility is just different. Mentality.
100%.
So now you have to kind of like navigate that space as well. And the woman has the time and the aptitude to do it. I think now we've shifted into this place in society where that kind of now goes to the wayside. And everybody's trying to start looking at things like in an equal, and I say air quotes, equal setting. And it doesn't work like that. It's just like the story I brought up. That woman who decided she was going to be a man for a year and she wound up killing herself over it. Because
Yeah.
the things that men go through is ridiculous. And a lot of people don't see that. So my thing is like, how do we fix that moving forward? Like, how do we start making this shift now? Because if we continue on this path, it's only going to get worse.
Well, like, part of me is I don't ever think we will be in the position to be vulnerable like women. I don't think that will ever. Not to the extent where it's like they got a broken heart, they could take a day off and cry about it. Not necessarily your work will give you a day off, but that's understandable by the masses.
Mm-hmm.
Like you say with men, it could be your mother died. Oh shit, man. But you still expected to get up and go to work. So there's bills to pay. You want to sit there, cry your eyes out because fuck, this shit hurts. There's nothing else. You can't tell me anything to fix this. Sometimes I just need space and time. But you're never going to get that. If you have a family, you got responsibilities. You got your kids, you got your wife. And I mean, even if she is like 100% got your support, there's come a point where you're going to be like, all right, you got to get up. You got to go do your shit. Like I tell my son, I don't necessarily know if this is wrong or not, but if there's a problem and you feel like you want to cry about it, try hard and get it out of the way. Because at some point you have to get up and do something about it. I don't necessarily know if that's the best way to do it, but it's just like no one's gonna take this. Like, yeah, I'm your dad. You got your mom. You got something to cry about. We're gonna be concerned about what you're crying about. Like, if you got this point where you're bawling your eyes out, I know something is wrong and I'm concerned. But you cannot expect that outside the home. You cannot, especially as a man. If you go to school and you start crying, you're gonna get bullied before anybody looks at you and be like, "What the fuck's wrong with you? Are you okay? Like, do you need some help?" No, and then you will probably be afraid to go back the next day because it's just like, yo, I was so vulnerable at school. Like, people saw me crying, it's not be a legit reason. But before they find that out, they're gonna bully you. And that's the part where it's like, yo, what's the point of even talking about it? Am I gonna be able to sit down and actually go and get help? Or is it like, I'm getting the help, but I still gotta get up and go do the stressful thing that's causing the problem? I don't have the time, I don't have the space, I don't have the freedom to just say, hey, I'm gonna take care of me right now. It's because I need this. We don't have it, and I don't think it'll ever get to that point. Like, you're rich people, they go talk to a psychiatrist every week. You have the money, the funds, and the times to go and do that shit. That's like, I don't even think they really need it. But it's just like, yeah, I wish I had that opportunity. Where it's like, hey, fuck work. Go talk to somebody. Get all this shit out my chest. Give me some advice, blah, blah, blah. I feel like that would be beneficial to the whole world. To the whole world. But it will never be. We can't afford it. I can't expect the government to be like, all right, we're going to fund everybody getting mental health therapy or whatever you want to call it. I don't think it will ever get to that point. And what we do will be from us. It'd be this, like us talking to each other, because that's all we can control. If other men don't see it, well, you get out of the club. You're not part of this club. But like, the men who really want to see better for other men, those are I feel like 100% those are the only people we can depend on. Because like you, I could talk to you, lay out my problems, but you're not expecting anything really from me. There's nothing there. We don't live together. We don't have any kind of relate. It's just friendship. It's like, hey, buddy, what's wrong? All right, lay it out. At the end of it, it's going to be like, all right, man, wish you the best. Here's some advice, blah, blah. And that might not be everything, but it's just like, I am only worried about me at this point. You go talk to your wife, I got to say, oh, shit, I can't get too loud. You ever feel something and you're talking loud, you don't even realize you're talking loud, and then she hits you with that, oh, so why are you raising your voice? Bitch, because I'm really passionate about what I'm saying right now. I'm not mad, you know this. I've never struck out at you, so don't be acting crazy like you're scared of some shit. Like, hey, this is a big deal that I'm talking about. I'm talking a little louder because I feel this. Like, this is a big issue. But it's like, unless it's us, each other, black, white, whatever, but it has to be, I think it has to be met. That gives us the freedom, that gives us to be like, hey, shit, it's okay. It is okay. What happened? Oh, blah, blah, blah happened. Shit. Like, just to know, because like you said, say some child is getting molested, but he's afraid to tell anybody. And it could be the one dude that could end all of this shit. I'm not saying go to violence, but it's just like, imagine that you hear in the news and that child actually went to dad the first time that thing happened. Burn the whole fucking building down. Because it's just like, I wish I knew. A lot of times, like, I wish I knew, but it's why we have to talk about it. We have to tell each other these stories. So it's normal. You can't be like, oh shit, this is only happening to me. I'm suffering from this. Like, we all know everybody deals with financial problems, but we will never talk about it. How you doing, man? I'm all right, man. I'm managing. That told you nothing. I could be at the point where it's my last dollar. I don't know how to feed my family today, but shit. Because if you heard that, you'd be like, oh, he might be at the point of doing something stupid. Let me check on this guy, because he just told me he has no money, his family's hungry, and he doesn't know what he's going to do next. Like, these are things we need to hear, but we got to be comfortable doing it. And even me, as I say, there's a lot of stuff I won't tell people. If I don't feel like a solution will come from you, I'm not, it's like, I'm not going to be bothered talking about this, because at the end of the day, I'm still dealing with this. Now I'm vulnerable, all my shit's out there, and that's a bad way to think of it. I shouldn't think of it that way. It should be like, at least I got this shit off my chest.
Yeah.
That should be somewhat of a relief. It's out there. Now you can be like, all right, something will happen now. We can deal with this. We can fix this. We can talk, go get help, whatever it is. But until we start speaking to each other and getting comfortable with it, we're not going to go nowhere. I don't think anybody else is going to do it. Our wives can be there. Our girls can be there to help us out and be our support. But the real help is going to come from each other. At least that's what I believe.
No, I agree with that 100%. Well, you look like you had a point you wanted to make.
Well, no, I mean, yeah, no, I agree with everything Tim just said. Like, man, we're all we've got at the end of the day. You know what I mean? We can't rely on spouse to uh to completely empathize with us. Because they can't be. It's hard for them to put themselves in our shoes
Mm.
every day. Uh, everyday shoes of a man. So it's like you have to be able to relate as a man to somebody else who knows what you're going through, who knows your struggle
Mm.
day to day. So yeah, I mean, it's gonna take hey, and like you also alluded to earlier about therapy, like Trey, as you know, I did a couple of years ago. I did that whole landmark thing. You know what I mean? And
Mm.
that was like, well, Tim, landmark is basically like therapy session over a weekend, course of a weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I did that like 3 years ago, and it was great. You know what I mean? It was I mean, it's not the same as a one-on-one session, obviously, but I mean, it's better than having none at all. You know what I mean? And also another thing I think too is if men do decide to go through therapy in the future, I think it has to be with another man
Mm.
because that's something I've seen talked about online. Like, okay, like a lot of dudes say, and even women say, "Oh, I've done therapy." Okay, who was your therapist? Oh, it was another woman.
Mm-hmm.
You know how it be? It's like they a lot of times they just kind of enable and like just aren't really providing solutions. It's like just kind of be like, oh, don't worry, you'll be all right, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's what it's going to take is men being willing to listen to each other more, being there for your boys, and being willing to yeah, obviously again therapy costs money at the end of the day. It's a cost, but um, what at the end of the day, our lives are priceless.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have the opportunity to do it, I'd say do it. Therapy.
Yeah, I agree. I did therapy with a female and with a male, just because I wanted to see if it would make a difference. And one thing I will say is when I did it and my therapist was male, he was a lot more understanding of the actual, like, just like the climate that we were kind of raised in. Because, like, as a man himself, like, we're taught from a young age, like, you're not allowed to be emotional. You're not allowed to, like, worry about this stuff. Like, if you're sitting here and dwelling on something that's like, that's a female thing. Like, don't sit there and cry about it. Man up. And it's bad because like even going through life, like that's something I was told. I remember dating people. I'd be like, yeah, you know what? I'm not feeling that great today. Oh, well, you got to man up. I'm like, this is a woman telling me I got to man. What do you like? What is your idea of that? And like just going through the motions just became the norm. It's almost like your expectation. It's funny because like we all saw the Will Smith and Chris Rock slap, and I think a lot of people like I found it hilarious.
I got
Like I'm not gonna lie, when it first happened, I was
I
like,
laughed. I laughed.
but I'm putting it out there now, and things do not change with that man. He will be the next one to wind up being in this scenario and this situation. And there's a few things I looked at with that situation. First and foremost, when Chris Rock said his line, the man was laughing. Like he found it hilarious because it was actually a funny joke. It really was. And it wasn't until she looked at him that his whole demeanor changed. Like if you watch the video from the beginning to the end, his whole demeanor changed in the span of
Yeah.
to where he went up there now and like put his hands on somebody else. Now, if she wasn't there, I guarantee none of this would have happened. So I can only imagine the pressure that was on him just from that alone. I also like you guys know me. Like I love Will Smith. So he did a special on YouTube. And it started off with him just kind of like talking about how he's trying to lose weight and he's trying to write a book at the same time. And from episode 2 on, this whole thing took like a turn. You just saw his life kind of unravel in front of him. And he was just trying to grab on to like whatever bits of himself that he thought was. He was doing some wild shit. This man was in Dubai climbing up fucking mountains and shit.
Oh, I heard about
He was driving
that.
on ATVs at like 40 something years old. Man fell off and like fucked up his hand. Like he really did everything that he could do to try to find that little boost in his life. And just kind of like going through a lot of things and studying a lot of things, I realized that a lot of people don't want to solve the hard things in their life. But men, we are told that we have to. A lot of, sadly, women get to, not all women. I know a lot of women who are straight G's and have to go through some hard shit. So I'm not saying that. Those women are different. But for the most part, men kind of put themselves in that role so that their woman wouldn't have to. And you see it a lot with like men with their mothers. Like, look how many people become athletes, become super successful. What's the first thing they do? They buy their mama a house. They buy their mama.
Good.
They do whatever they can to like make sure that she doesn't have a hard life. You don't really see them be like, oh, I'm gonna buy my dad a house. You know what I mean? You don't. Look at
a nigga be in the gym with you.
look at all of the holidays, right? Mother's Day,
Yeah.
you take out for dinner, you spend probably $400, $500 on your mom. You buy her dad a tie or a pair of socks. And you get a little
Right.
kick like Happy Father's Day.
That shit.
Oh, true. Yeah.
Valentine's Day ain't about the guy, it's about the girl. The wedding
Nope.
about the woman. So we have been ingrained that we are conditioned to suffer to make sure that the women in our lives are taken care of. And the sad part is what happens when we need that care. And I think that's where this all stems from. Like, what happens when we need that care? And it's hard for us to get that from other men because, like Tim said, like, we don't really talk about it. We need to, but we don't. And we don't because we've also been conditioned that that's not something you do. Like, I found it crazy that, like, when I started therapy, people were surprised. They're like, black people don't do therapy. You're a black man. Why are you taking therapy for? I'm like, who the hell am I going to talk to about this? Like, legit, I just need to get it out.
I swear, the majority of those people saying that be like, shit, man, I wish I could do that.
Right?
I wish I could do that. It's like, hey, it's crazy, but it's like one of those things. Once you in it, I feel like it's like you won't shut up.
Yeah.
It's like I've been waiting to say some stuff, and you just gonna be like, blah, just let it all out because you're like, yeah, man, thank you.
Gonna fall
Even
out
if
of
that's all you did. Even if that's all you did, I feel like a lot of people would be like, yo, thanks. I just needed to get that out. Thanks for listening. That's probably why these dudes be getting prostitutes and just talk to them sometimes. You ever heard of that? No. I thought that was wild. But you hear about dudes who just get prostitutes and then just talk. I don't know if it's true. Never done any shit.
No, it's true.
But,
I done it. It's true. He paid like $400,
right?
girl, sit in a room with him for 3 hours, and he just vented
Crying
and
his
cried.
eyes out and shit.
No pom pom, no nothing. Vented and
Nothing.
for 3 hours.
If that's not a single that men have some issues to talk about, I don't know what is. We are paying prostitutes to talk. That is crazy. Like I would honestly, if I did that, my wife caught me and be like, "Oh, don't you feel bad? Don't you feel bad that I had to go? Listen, I felt more comfortable to talk to this weirdo than I just to talk to you." Like there's certain things where it's like people know. The majority of people know. The media, they know men are suffering. They don't care to do anything about it. They do not. That's why I say we got to do it for each other. Because, like, come on. There's certain things where it's like you said, look at the numbers. You looked at the numbers. I'm glad to hear these numbers. Bet you go talk to, like, a woman fighting for women's stuff like this, and they don't know the men's numbers. Like, I believe they don't know because it's just like, oh, that is not the problem right now. No, the problem should be suicide. Like that should be the problem. Mental illness, whoever it's coming from. Like if that's what you do, I should be able to come and sit down and talk to you about it. And you have no bias or no prejudice or whatever. You just listen and doing the job the way it's supposed to be done. But yeah, I don't. People know. I honestly think people know the problem, but it's like, yeah, man. Look at us. Like
I also think that, and this is just me speaking very candidly. I think that, in all honesty, it's not really fair for somebody to put themselves in that role. Like, as much as you want your partner to be the person that you can talk to about things and go through, and don't get me wrong, the day-to-days of life that they're going to be privy to the same way you are things that you can definitely do and express with your partner. But there are some things in your life that you can't go to them to. You know it. You know that it's not going to be conducive, and at the end of the day, there's some things that you kind of have to figure out, not on your own, but with people who are kind of in the same space as you. Women have a leg up, and I will say this: they were a lot more smarter, but I think they were also allowed to live in that space as well. 110%. If your girl got a problem with you, she got a friend she can go talk to about it. Get it out of her system, and
System.
and she loves you all over again. You know what I
Yep.
mean? That's just how it is. I feel like men don't really have that, right? Men don't really. We never created that space for ourselves. We were taught that if you needed that space, something was wrong with you. So
Yeah.
we kind of never took the time to do so. If a girl goes through a breakup, who's the first people she's going to talk to? She has three friends. She will call immediately. They will sit together. They will get drunk with a bottle of wine, and they will get everything out. And they will wake up on Monday feeling light and refreshed. Whereas that guy is going to go home, going to be crying in his room by
Yeah.
himself and have to
If we
wake up.
do take you out, it'd be like, we'll get him drunk and shut him up. We don't want to really hear it. We just want him to just like, I
Yeah.
mean, we're being
Yeah.
honest. Like,
Real shit.
that is what
It's
it
like
is.
it's
Like,
like
oh shit, your girl left you. All right, let's go grab a drink, man.
Real
You're
shit.
not talking. You're just drinking, and
yeah, we don't even
hopefully the
want to talk about it. It's like move on right away. Yeah,
Yeah.
immediately.
And that's the
Crazy.
thing. But what people don't realize is you carry that with you. You carry that trauma with you. And that becomes an escape. And there's a difference between living in survival mode and living in a mode where you're actually going to be productive and you're going to push on in your life. Now, what a lot of people tend to do is will have these little things. You'll go have that drink. You'll go smoke a little weed. Like, I like a little weed. It is what it is. But that now becomes a crutch for you. And every time you get to that place where you come to the point where you deal with this problem again, and your alternative is chase that escape again, or actually sit down and deal with the shit. Actually sit down and go through the process, go through the hurt, go through the pain, go through the trauma, go through everything that it's going to bring up and solve it and move on with your life. Well, we're almost conditioned not to do that anymore. What we're conditioned to do as men is like, just fuck it. Go kill it with work. Go here and do this. Get that little gratification of knowing that you're getting $150 that day that you could
yeah, right.
into still
All
in the room,
right.
right? We're looking at I caught this mouse and threw it outside, but the elephant's still in the living room. So
hmm
if we think
Mhm.
we expect to get
I like
past
that.
it, it's just that mentality of like, don't sit there and just complain about it. Like Lupe Fiasco said, you're complaining about the room, but you never picked the broom up. So if you have to clean up shit, you really don't have the right to sit there and cry about it. And I think a lot of men need to start understanding that. We need to have those tough conversations. We need to stop being afraid of repercussion with things. I know this whole world now is talking about toxic masculinity and all of this BS, when in all honesty, it's just men now venting their frustrations with the world
Yeah,
that was
but as
created to protect
it ain't
you. And now it's like not protecting anybody.
movement though. That was the whole Me Too
Yeah.
movement. Criminalize defending yourself was like one of the first things they did.
Hmm.
Victim blaming, yeah, victim blaming is a thing, but not always. Like if you honestly played a part, not saying you're the blame, but it's like
Hmm.
something to be talked about.
Yeah.
So like they made it criminal to defend yourself.
Yeah.
Like you said, toxic masculinity. Like no, I can defend myself. I can say what I'm doing is not what you say it is that I'm doing. But no, you can't. And it's everywhere. The media, oh, this person, you can't defend yourself? Like that's
Mhm.
crazy. You're talking about freedom of this and equality, blah, blah, blah. But you're telling us to also shut up while you're doing it?
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
that's why I say they know, but they don't really care. To a certain like I mean, like you said, you don't not necessarily your problem to take on heavy, but sometimes it's just giving a shit.
Mm.
Just listening or like Sometimes, hey, like my wife will come home and be mad at someone at work. Like, I really don't understand what's going on, but you just need a fan in your corner just to be like, yeah, fuck that bitch or
Mm,
whatever. Excuse my language in your pot. But it's just like sometimes you just need someone in your corner to be like, yo, and match that angle. If I come from work and I'm talking about my boss,
mm,
I don't, at least not in the first, don't be like, oh, well, you should have done this or you should have done. I need a
mm.
fan. I need someone to get my back and ride with me
Yeah.
while I'm venting this shit out. And sometimes that's it. But it's like,
Mm,
if you can't even get that, I mean, where are you even going to start? Like, dude, stop going home. And yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of mess that comes from
mm,
just not being able to get out what you need to get out and how you need to get it out. If I'm going to yell it out, you know me. I've never raised my hand to you. I've never been violent in any way to you. What the hell are you afraid of? Like, why
yeah.
are you acting scared right now? I'm not yelling at you. I'm yelling general. If someone else walked into the room right now, they would get the same kind of yelling because that's just the mood that I'm in or whatever you want to call it. That's where the
Mm,
point I'm at in this conversation. But a lot of times you get that shit cut off and it's just like you're bad because you're being loud or your
mm.
voice is raspy or deep. It's like, oh, why you gotta say it like that?
Yeah.
Like,
You
sorry,
show
I'm
you
not
a little
PC
passion.
every single time right now.
You show a little passion. But
All right.
to that point, I also feel like that's what the extension of all of this have become. Like when you really think back at it, you being upset about something is the most natural part of life. It's an emotion. Everybody has it, everybody goes through it. Women express this all the time. You know when your girl is pissed off. You know when your mom is pissed off. Whether they're yelling, you know that they are not in a good mood. You picked it
Hmm.
up. And I feel like when it came to men, and I base this kind of just on things that I've seen. So if anybody's experience is different, let me know. When she's mad, everybody's quiet. No one's gonna say anything. No one's gonna oppose to anything. If she tells you that your shoes are in the wrong place, though they've been there now for 3 months, they're in the wrong. They are. And just
He's
because
looking
we
for shit.
want that fight, we don't want that. Not that it's wrong. Not that having a disagreement or a discussion about something is wrong. It's just I feel like men feel like we're gonna come from a place of rationality, and if they're not in a place of rationality, it's not gonna make sense. So it's almost better to just kind of like let it go. I know a lot of men now are afraid to just like even state their opinion because you state an opinion on something, something's wrong with you. And it's funny because like even with the whole Me Too movement, I feel like a lot of men were supporting the women because they saw the foolishness that these men were doing. But there were some of those girls where we were like, did he really? Now there was the
Oh,
one who said,
shit.
and I don't care, I'll go there. There was the one girl that said, I can't remember her name, but her manager called her at 3 o'clock in the morning and told her to meet him for a meeting in his office, just the two of them. And she went. Now, if somebody called you at 3 o'clock in the morning and told you, hey, like, hey, meet me here at 3. I know like it's secluded, no one else is I'm gonna think I'm getting robbed. I'm gonna think I'm getting mugged. I think I'm gonna
Whoa.
like something's gonna happen to me. So I'm not gonna go there.
Woman is like, yo, babe, I gotta go. You're coming with me. Like, I am not getting up at 3 o'clock. Even me as a
Something
man, I don't
about
want to be walking out
doesn't
at
make
3 o'clock in the morning.
something about it doesn't make or you
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
like I got attacked by these people. Well, were you? I was jogging through the busiest park in the city at 2 o'clock in the morning. Why did you pick 2 o'clock to go jogging in a park? Did you not think something could happen to you? And therein lies the difference, because I think that becomes a conditioning thing. Because again, women were protected before. Your husband was the one who was out in the world, and you were at home. You would go out to the grocery store, you go little places, but you would do things and you would interact with the world, but still in a very controlled way.
It would never
Where
been 2 o'clock in the morning.
now that you
Back
got,
then, it would have
you
never
know,
been 2 o'clock in the morning. My wife
no,
not at 2 o'clock in the morning. You crazy? She's doing
never would.
some shit.
They would feel like, what are you talking about? And that's the thing. Like in that time frame too. Like if her husband said, no, you're not going out at 2 o'clock, something can happen to you. 90% of the time, they're like, okay, I'm trusting your opinion on this. I ain't gonna go.
That makes sense. If this guy, the man, is afraid to go out at 2 o'clock in the morning and he's telling me it's not safe, maybe it's right.
Mhm.
That's the thing with a lot of women with me, like they made being a man a criminal thing. Like it was such
Mhm.
a negative thing that anything, even if we're doing it in a protective way, was
Mhm.
considered bad. It's just like if I tell my wife it's not safe to go out at 2 o'clock in the morning, how is that me controlling her?
Mhm.
Like you hear that kind of stuff, and it's just like, but if you really think about what I'm saying, this is just me being concerned. Because if
Yeah.
she does go out and something happens, then what? Oops, sorry. Oh, I pray that she'll come. Like we don't want to get to that point.
Mhm.
Like I was watching this other podcast on YouTube, and this guy was saying how if he met a girl in the club, he also doesn't want her to go. Like she was working in like a bartender, but she
Mhm.
also like flirted with the dudes and whatnot. And he was saying like, oh, if I met you there, then I know that another dude can get you there,
Mhm.
and I wouldn't want you still working in the club.
Mhm.
And all the other girls were like, oh, you just that guy, da da da. I'm like, but that it's not normal.
Mhm.
That should be
So
normal because why
Sam,
would I want you to do this? I got you like that.
But
So there's another
yeah.
dude that could do the same. I'm not even that big of a dude. Like I'm not rich. I'm not da da da. So if another dude throws more money at you, it's a reasonable assumption that hey, you might just be taken by that.
yeah, I
So
I
it's
even
like,
I look at it even further than that, and I'll explain it, and then you guys tell me if you feel the same way. I feel like most women get into a relationship so they can feel secure, they can feel protected. Notice a lot of women, when they're looking out for a guy, they want the guy who's bigger, they want the guy who's more successful, they want the guy who can provide for them and take care of them.
Yeah.
So if you get a guy who comes in and he's like, I'm gonna protect you, I'm gonna take care of you, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and he starts saying like, hey, listen, I wouldn't do that because of this. I wouldn't go out at 3 o'clock in the morning and walk through that park because I know people have mugged people there, and I care for you. I want you protected. That should be the basis of this relationship. But if you now turn around and say, you can't tell me what to do, I'm going to go where I want, do what I want, I don't want to hear it, blah, 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 that's fine. But when something happens to you, you now expect me to come help you or come protect you or come keep you
Yeah.
safe. They've now put me in this weird paradox where I'm supposed to take care of you, but I have no control over taking care of you.
that thing.
How do you expect that to work? Now, imagine, by extension, think of a different scenario. That's like you going to work and you know how to do your job, or you have a good idea of how to do your job. And now your boss pulls you from that job, pulls you into something completely different, and doesn't give you any help. Says, figure it out. What's the one thing that's going to happen? You're going to get stressed out immediately. The stress will hit you in ways that you don't understand. So it's almost like that's the role you're giving us. You want us to come in, you want us to lead, you want us to protect you, but you don't want to listen to anything that we tell you. So how are we?
Scream like Superman and come running.
So imagine that stress upon the stress you're going to feel at work, upon the stress you're going to feel in society. I don't know about you guys. I am now afraid to like hold the door for a woman. I really am. I still do it, but it terrifies me every single time because like, I done like, oh, thank you.
I feel you.
Now
I feel you.
like I look at you sideways. I'm like, well, I can hold my own door.
Oh,
Okay.
Changed. I've changed. I have changed. I'm not that guy anymore. I used to do that shit and let like five
yeah.
women walk through.
Mm,
But it was just like, nope. Because I'm gonna do this and it ain't gonna mean nothing.
yeah.
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
This was me. To me, it's common courtesy. Not even being like, what's the word? I can't even think of the word to use when you. There's like a man word for. I'm blanking out right now. But we do it, yes, straight up, just because we're men, and it's like, all
Mm,
right, I'm gonna do like open up a car door, pulling it. Like
mm,
these are for most men, that's not an issue.
mm,
Like pay, those are just things we. But if you start being like, oh, I don't need you, like partly it's like, oh, if we do this, he's like, oh, that's nice, or you're thinking a certain way. Like, if I willingly just pay for the meal. Well, you're now thinking, oh, this is the kind of guy that's like, he's not stingy with his money. He's willing to take me out, treat me, and do these things. But now if you're like, oh, I do this because I have to, or I owe you this, or all that other extra stuff is just like, no, I'm not no longer doing it because I'm a nice guy. You're no longer going to see me this way. You're just going to be like, oh, he's just trying to get something. Maybe, but I could just be like, yo, let's go fuck somewhere. But I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm trying to talk to you nice, be a gentleman. I'm trying to do that. But if you're not going to accept that, what's the point?
Yeah.
Because we are trying, even if it's not our significant other, we open up a door to be nice to a woman. So we don't do it to other men. We don't really care. Hey, buddy, you're good. Pull the door yourself, or catch it on the while I'm open as I'm walking through, because you don't necessarily want that attention or care how you feel about it. But even if it's an older lady, it's like, oh, thank you. Like, you feel good.
Yeah,
you feel good to do that. But if that's gone out the window, well, sorry. And that's the thing. It'll be a trickle. It'll be a snowball effect. There'll be certain situations where you'll see a woman in danger now and be like, oh, she got it. If I go and jump in and she go be like, that should never be. All men everywhere all the time should be like, hey, man, at least to the point of distraction or whatever. I ain't saying jump in and start throwing fists for every woman, but it's like there'll come a point where men will be like, man, you got it. You said you got it. You got everything else. What do you need me for?
I feel like men have kind of lost identity in this sense, especially in this climate now. And I know for myself, like I grew up with like my mother. Like I never had a father. You know what I mean? I never really had that influence. I got lucky because I kind of found that in other people, but I had to be proactive in that. And a lot of us grow up in that environment where it's like you're almost paying for your parents' sin in a way, because like your dad's not there, you usually don't have access to them. So you're raised by the values of a woman, which isn't bad, because you're going to learn to kind of be in touch with parts of yourself that really wasn't there before. Whereas like if you grew up with your dad, he'd be like, yo, swallow your feelings, drink some whiskey and move on with your life. And I feel like we're really supposed to be somewhere in the middle, because if you look at family dynamic, you're supposed to grow up with both parents, right? Your mom is supposed to, and your dad is supposed to toughen you. And if you're a man, in general, they always say like the woman will always soften you. Some of the greatest defeats for men happen because of their women, not because they did something wrong, but because they protect them. When you really, Mark Antony and Cleopatra, his whole kingdom got wiped out because he was trying to protect his woman. Will Smith's career, defending his woman's honor. So I think we're just in a place now where we don't really know how to do that anymore, because the way it used to be done before obviously isn't working anymore, which makes sense. Evolution is going to happen. Women have rights now. Women are capable of doing things they couldn't do before. But I think that's been taken to such an extreme now, to where it's like it's going to take a lot to balance out. So if you're a guy now coming in, you have to be of that caliber to where women will accept you. And we were dating, so we understand like they're always going for like the top tier guy and blah 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 and all of this shit. But then they get there and they don't like it anyways. So I think where it becomes hard for us, it's like, okay, well, what are we exactly? What is our role here now? If we're supposed to be A, then why is it not working out when we're A? If it's supposed to be B, then why is it not working out in that space as well? So we're just in a transition where we're trying to play a game with an old playbook, and we're trying to make it work as we go through. And unfortunately, a lot of us were taught, like, you don't have to do that. You don't have to rely on each other. You don't have to talk to each other. So we're not getting the full picture from any asset of life. We're making decisions based on what we know individually. Whereas like I talk to Tim and Tim will tell me he'll show me a whole different world that I wasn't privy to. And I'll talk to William and it'll be the same thing. And taking all that in is where we're going to kind of start making things work and kind of like understand what we're supposed to be a lot better than we've been doing so far. Have we been doing well? Yeah. Have we been a little lazy? Yeah. Not gonna lie. We have been. We've been a little lazy, right? We just assume that like, oh, well, you go out there and you're successful. women are just going to come to you. And that's true. But will the right woman come to you? Right? If you use cheddar as a bait, you're going to recruit a rat, and you can't complain when you have the rat because that's what you brought in. That's what they expected from you. They expected this person who had money. They expected this guy who was going to take them out all the time. They expected the dude who's going to fly them out to Dubai because you said you were going to do that. So when you don't do that now, you lose value to women. And I think we get so caught up in that because that's what we see the most that we kind of get a little short-sighted. I will say there are women out there who definitely just want to look out for you and definitely want to make sure you're good. They just don't know what that looks like anymore. And it's not their fault at some point because we don't even know what that looks like. We're trying to make it up too. We're trying to float. We're trying to just connect the dots as best as we can. So I think my main kind of like thought, and for like the women who are actually listening to this, have some grace with us because we have grace with you. We understand that you're in a different climate yourself. We understand that your upbringing was different. Your mother was home. She didn't have the benefits that she had. Your grandmother didn't have the benefits that we have. I understand that you have a degree. I'm proud of you. I understand that you have a job. I'm proud of you. I'm not trying to get in the way of any of that. What I'm trying to do is show you that like I'm learning too. And we're not going to get it right. We're not. So if we're not able to communicate about things, it's not going to go well for any of us. And I think for the men listening, like, we have to do better. We have to. It's on us. It's no one else's responsibility. I think, Will, you had said it earlier in the chats. It's our responsibility to want that. It's our responsibility to lean on each other. And if we're not doing that, then we can't complain either. That's just kind of like where I end with everything.
Big facts.
Don't give up. Keep pushing. Our significant other, just stick with us. If you got to push a little bit, be patient, but don't give up on us.
Yeah.
Got good men out there.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true.
That's what you say. That's what you always say you want is a good man.
Yeah.
You know. And then, you know,
they some time, but shit, just need a little tweak.
Women, they be virtue signaling all the time, man. They all say, you know, a lot of them talk about the good man, and then, you know, the truth comes out long after that. So
just a
once
little.
You really
we just need a little. We need a little bit of love. You know what's funny? I thought about this like right before I got on here, and it was just ironic that I brought up the whole thing with like Will Smith and Chris Rock. Chris Rock knew exactly what was going on in that dude's life, 110%. Because in all honesty, if a man came up and slapped him in the face in any other setting, he would have fought back. But he knew.
He was like, shit. How bad you got to be to come up? All of these people did this whole walk and still slap me.
Mm-hmm.
Something's definitely wrong.
Yeah,
that was one of those moments. Like,
he saw it. He saw it in himself. I don't know if he saw it like in his own personal life or not, but even just the lead up to that. And then if you watch his special, I think the most famous line from his entire special was, "The only things that are loved unconditionally are women, children, and dogs."
Amen.
And the role is only determined by what he can provide. And in that place, Will's role was to provide whatever Jada needed, and he understood that, even in that moment. I want to give just straight up props to Chris Rock because that is some tough shit to deal with.
You could have made it worse. You could have made it worse.
Mm.
And he had every right to. I mean, as a man, he could have been like, yo, no, I don't care what you're going through. That's you fully disrespecting me in front of all these people. No, but he was like, you know what, brother? Yeah, you need a little help. We need a little compassion.
Get that out. That was it.
He went through bullying. Chris Rock said he went through bullying too when he grew up. So I think they interviewed him after whatever, and they said, oh, that was like a flashback.
Mm-hmm.
So he was growing up, like, oh shit, you know. But I guess he did the work, the therapy, whatever it is, and to get him through that. So then he was prepared for that moment. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He was prepared to be a professional, to kind of take it on the chin. But yeah, if he, in any other scenario, yeah, he probably would have fucked him up. I mean, I know Will's big and all that, but he would have swung back, is what I'm saying,
Oh, he would have. Y'all gotta understand. Chris Rock grew up in the hood. He could have had Will handled by the time he left that building. He just, I think
Oh, yeah.
what was beautiful about that whole thing is that Chris showed him the love that he really needs at that point in time. He showed him the love that I think he wishes Jada would have showed him. And it's not to say that Jada's a bad person. I don't think she's a bad person at all. She has her own things that she's going through. Whatever their agreement is in their relationship is their business. Like, that's not anything we're privy to. But at the same time, like, I get that you felt disrespected, but it was handled differently between her and the way Chris did it. Yes, somebody made fun of your bald head. Okay, great. I get made fun of my head all the damn time. I really don't care. Doesn't bother me. I know as a woman, it's going to have more weight because, like, beauty standards and everything like that. But imagine the humiliation of being slapped by another dude on TV who's your friend, who is your friend in the same work that you do. So your husband goes out there and he's a comedian too, and he makes funny movies and all of that stuff. If this wasn't a movie, it wouldn't have been a problem. But to publicly humiliate a person like that gave her satisfaction in her life. So we have to look at this.
Martin Lawrence hasn't been a little weird when he cracks a joke towards him.
You know what I mean?
Shit like that, right? He knows it, and that's why he was laughing, though.
Yeah, that's why he let it go. He looked at it and said, "Listen, like, I could make this worse for you, but how is that going to help you grow as a person?" Chris Rock. Everybody needs a friend like Chris Rock. I'm sorry, we all need a friend like Chris Rock.
Take a slap and be like, "Nigga, you okay?
You got it out? You good?
Talk about
all right."
Because it's just like, this is weird.
Movie next week.
Oh, man, I think you're a little generous there. And you said Jada, she, is a good person, and she just, you don't know what she's going through. I honestly think Jada's straight up evil. She's been straight up evil to Will for a long time, bro. Like, there's this letter. She made a letter. She wrote a letter to Tupac. Or yeah, and
think about
I agree with you 100%, man.
Think about it this
I
way.
agree with him 100%. Jada's been a problem, man. Putting all your shit. You got this nigga sitting on that red table while you about to expose yourself to cheating. That shit was a mess. That was a mess. She knew what she was doing. Come sit at my red. No, that's a personal conversation. But she made that nigga come sit at that table and nope, I don't give a shit. I'm siding with you, man. She's been no good. No good. I'd have laughed harder at that joke. Sorry, man.
And I will say that. Look at it. Bro, look at that side.
And one of her letters to Tupac, she wrote something like, "The mere thought of you makes me feel orgasmic," or some shit like, bro, that's the ultimate disrespect if you're married to like a man. Like, what the fuck?
She kept it. It's been years. How many times you pull that shit out while you here? Man, I feel you on that. She has been problems.
Don't get me wrong. She probably every time before she slept with Will. I get it. But for somebody to even be thinking the way that she's thinking and acting the way she's acting, she got some unresolved shit she got to deal with too.
That's what her red table talk was all about. It's instead of talking her shit, she talked everybody else's.
It's unfortunate for Will because Will wants to take that role. Will wants to be that person who's going to help her get through that, but you're not built for it. And the sooner he understands that, the better. That's a journey for her to take on her own accord. But again,
I'm trying to look for help right now.
They got to
whatever. It's a whole nother ball. We can talk about this one for hours.
This is another episode on it.
Right.
You need your own episode. You know what I mean? Like,
we'll talk, and then you can decide if you're gonna post it or not.
I'm gonna post it.
Just don't close your
like, cancels. Oh my God, these hate Jada.
This is a disclosure for a reason. We disclose everything. It is what it is. No, we
Oh
gotta be.
man.
We'll do that. We'll call it like.
Aren't looking at Jada the same way they did back in the day. There's no dude right now looking at Jada and being like, yo, not even because I think collectively a lot of men thought Jada is hot.
Mm.
Been sexy for years.
Yeah,
Now, ask them that question. Do you think she's hot? They'd be like, she doesn't look as hot as she used to. And she does look as hot as she used to. She hasn't looked any different. But that way she's been acting changes everything.
Yeah,
Changes everything. And a lot of women
Big time.
don't realize when men catch your attitude like that, you become ugly.
Yeah.
Your facial features is now an unpleasant thing to look at.
Because men are looking at. Okay, let me say this properly. Some men are just looking at you in the physical sense. Is what it is. I'm gonna call it. Me personally, if I'm not physically attracted to you, you're not gonna get my attention. We're not gonna date. That's because like I know that at the end of the day, I gotta look at you every day. I know that at the end of the day, I gotta sleep with you. And if I'm not attracted to you, it's just gonna cause problems. So in that sense, it's not a women don't act like y'all ain't looking at the good looking dude and the ugly dude walking looked at you. There's 34 guys you're gonna curb before you're gonna pick one. So that's just natural selection of life. What ends up happening is like eventually you start to know people and then you're gonna start to like different avenues of them and like, okay, they're not the prettiest guy, but like they're good to me. And that's something I more. We look for value in these things. This is how men have always kind of like functioned. We always look for value. Our job value. Our home provides us value. So our relationship is going to provide us value. And now we're coming into this weird, can't even say it's weird, it was kind of expected, where men are dwarfing their value, where they didn't have to do before. Now, is that a natural progression in life? It is what it is, but that's where we're at. And now with women coming out and women are more successful and everything like that, men are still programmed to be like, oh, well, I got to provide for you. Like, that's my thing. I got to provide for you. That was the one thing that a lot of these dudes had. I'm just going to say it. It's not anything to knock for guys or anything like that. And especially men who look for that like traditional value of life. Like, we have to understand that that is gone. It is gone. We cannot live in that world and we cannot expect that world anymore. These women are out here making money too. So,
but I gotta say one thing, and this is just a small percentage of women, I hope. With me, I really don't care because I'm not in that game anymore. But I was watching where it's like they want a man that will take care of everything, the bills and blah blah, but don't provide the care for that man.
Yeah.
Like they don't even think they need to. It's like, oh, you're getting sex, pay my bills. And it's just like, you're not even at that status yet. Like, I barely know your name, and this is what you're talking about. Like, you can't go to first date and be like, hey, I need my bills paid, or I need this paid. It's like, that could be a potential thing years down the line. Like, when I'm about to put that ring on your finger, you're my wife, I will take care of you. But they got first date girlfriends who want that kind of treatment. So it's like, they want the traditional stuff, but they don't want to do their side of the traditional stuff.
Exactly.
Never.
Exactly.
Not anymore.
That's where it's become twisted. Because at the same time, as much as we've kind of lost our identity in life as men, like women have lost their identity as women by gaining the things that they gain. Because you can look back and be, well, I don't understand why my mom stayed home and like didn't want to work. Well, she didn't need to. Dad took care of everything. She was cool with it. That was her agreement. I'm gonna stay home and take care of the home. It's what I'm good at. You go out and make the money. That's what you're good at. Now it's like she also has a job. She's also making her money. So like your money now has less value. Your ability to care for her has less value. So what else do you got to bring to? And in all honesty, a lot of us didn't learn anymore. Like that's all it is for some dudes.
I mean, growing up, both my parents worked, and but my mom still did all the like cooking. My dad just worked a different hour, so it just didn't make sense for him to come. But it was like, I have no issue splitting the roles. Like when my wife was home, Like right now, she obviously was there when my son got home, made him dinner and all that stuff because she's home. Obviously, I can't do it because I'm not there. And then we switch. But it's like you can grow up in a situation, but you also got to look at what are you making. Like if I'm making under what 80,000 a year, and you're making around the same, well, obviously I can't pay all your bills. Or if I do pay all your bills, what do you pay? Like it has to be a balance to all this, and it's like it's obvious. It's not a mystery about any of this, but a lot of people want their cake without actually doing any of the baking. That's a good term at all.
That's a very good analogy. You
or any too. That's another one too.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. I think nobody understands what we're supposed to do anymore. We don't know what because everything's kind of been put up. You're not impressing people with more than that. They want you to step into like a different role. And a bulk of us men really don't understand what it looks like. So you stick with that old mentality. So if you can't provide being like a stable person for our family, or you can't provide like, oh, you actually care and like will take care of me as a person, but you can bring in money, okay, that's fine. I bring in money too. You better bring in more money. Bring it. You got to bring in twice as much, because if that's all you're and I don't need it, you got to do it in excess. And that's why they're kind of looking for, like, a lot of girls are looking for that comfort, right? So you as the man now, you're like, well, shit, I'm making like 70 grand a year, but it's not enough. So I got to go out there and do more shit and more shit and more shit. And then you wind up killing yourself trying to appease this person because that's the standard in a relationship. With that's going to come with all kinds of stress and shit. So when you go through that, you're going to be like, okay, well, where am I going to get the support from? Not from that person.
Nope. Well, I mean, this person's waiting for you to make it, so he can't turn back on a hard time and be like, can you help me out a little bit? Can you pay a couple bills? And be like, nah, like that should be a scary situation for anybody, a man or a woman. If there's one income and you're not doing or have any other skills, like what if he does fall on a hard time? What if he is just enough to pay for the house, the car, the kids, the groceries, and all that stuff, and there's really not much into saving? He could be making good money, but if he loses that job, it's like, okay, so what now? You can't just be looking at him and be like, all right, man, all right, step up. Like, give me a minute, man. I just lost my fucking job. Like, it's gonna take a minute, but you got a little support. And that's where a lot of other problems will come from, because you're just like, oh, shit. Now I look at you and you're like, oh, you really don't do shit in this house. Oh, you cook, but it's just like, well, that's the thing. Everything becomes a problem because you're just like, oh, fuck. All you're doing is sitting at home all day, and more anger builds up, more animosity, because you're looking at someone, you're like, yo, I'm out here trying to get a job, but there you are, just, because I mean, I don't know, I've never been a stay-at-home dad or anything like that, at least nothing for like a whole day. But it's like, there's chunks of day you don't do shit. No, like if you're a regularly clean person and you handle your business, you can wake up at evening and not do shit and still get majority of your work done. Being someone who stays at home. I'm not saying that's an everyday thing, but it can happen. And if you see that, oh, you change your whole attitude about it. All right, guys, I gotta run.
I was about to say.
That lovely wife I'm talking about is expecting me home. But
take care, bro.
Fun, guys. Have a good one, man.
We have to come back and talk about that other stuff in depth. So
we do. We will. I'm here, man. Anytime.
Thanks you guys for coming out. This was fun. I hope everybody like learned something from this.
100%.
Whatever the hell you want to do. But we out. Protect your heart, everybody.
All right, man.
I love.